morning or good afternoon now. It's Sandra Pike from LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group. And boy, don't we have a hot topic today. It's not only, ruffled our feathers here as industry members, but even homeowners, within Nova Scotia who are not from here. And what we're actually talking about is the Nova Scotia budget that just rolled out today, that if you are a non-resident of Nova Scotia and you are buying a property and you're not moving here, as opposed to just paying the 1.5D transfer tax, you have an additional 5% tax. So that's 6.5% at closing. As well, that in the event that you are not going to be, renting your property out, let's say to someone here locally, you now have an additional 2% property tax that is going to be on you. And from what I gather, because there's not a lot of details around this, but the Houston government is hoping to curb the housing prices here. So Matt, again, we talked the other day, you have your finger on the pulse. What are your thoughts? What just is going on in our market right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Sandra. Just by way of introduction, my name is Matt Hansberger. I'm one of the brokers and owner at Royal LePage here. Certainly this seems to be a piece of legislation that is designed to position them or the Conservative government as more of a supporter of Nova Scotians trying to buy Nova Scotia properties than it actually will have the effect that I think is what's kind of tabled, which is to curb the inflationary pressure on pricing and housing right now. So I really think that this is going to have more of an effect on how people perceive the province than it actually will have an effect on the pocketbooks of the province. So I'm fairly disappointed that that's the direction that the PC government has chosen to take.
Now, Julie, if you could introduce yourself and tell us who you are and why this is so important to you, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Julia Clubb, and I'm a cottage owner in Chester, Nova Scotia. And my husband and I bought our cottage 8 years ago with the intention of making it, more or less our retirement home when we do retire. Our taxes currently are just under $16,000. We don't get any services, but we knew that when we bought our place. We obviously love our house. But with this new legislation, our taxes are going to be going up to over $45,000 on a property that's appraised at $1.6 million. And it's not just us. I was explaining to Sandra earlier, we're on the low end. We know a lot of people that are going 60,000, 90,000. One woman's going to 150,000. There's no place is worth this with taxes like that, as much as, everybody loves Chester. But if he really does want to curb, there are a lot of people that we know, local Nova Scotians that own multiple properties. There's one person in Chester that says he's just buying them up right, left, and center in Halifax. He said, you'd be stupid not to. He says, I'm so overextended at the moment. He owns over 15 properties. And it's not somebody from Ontario or BC or wherever, Germany or Baltimore, owning one cottage that are hurting the housing problem that Halifax is facing, as every city in Canada is facing.
Absolutely. Now, Pam, you own a couple of boutique brokerages around the province, so I'm going to get you to introduce. One, I thought it was two, but that's
brokerage, 4 offices.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay.
So can you introduce yourself and talk to us about what are your agents saying, or have you heard from other clients? What's happening?
I'm Pam Charrington. I'm the owner and the broker of Red Door Realty. I do have a shop in Lunenburg and one in Mahone Bay. And, the conversation down there in the last 2 months has always been sort of something about what are they talking about? And the prices have just gone to places that nobody can even imagine. So therefore, the property taxes on things have really escalated and that type of thing. And nobody, just like this lady right here, nobody can believe that things have escalated to where they have gone. And this scenario of what they're trying to fix, it's astonishing to me that they wouldn't have come to any sort of specialized career person and asked them what they're, you know, in a forum of what do you think we could do? There was lots of avenues that we could have taken to have snuffed what they think they're going to do out of the market in a way better way, rather than penalizing people who have supported our Nova Scotia community for years and years and years, paid their property taxes when they only enjoyed their property for 2 or 3 months out of the year, paid the education tax, paid for their garbage removal when they didn't use any of those services. And now we go back to these people after all that time that they created our Nova Scotia brand of we're the friendly province, come and join us. And here we are. And now what are we? Now we'll see you later, people. We don't want you here, because if you want to be here, you have to pay, pay, pay. That's just not who we are.
No, I would have to agree. So Matt, like, how would this tax that they're implementing, how in the heck is that going to solve the housing crisis that we have here? So Julia, you know, you're in the process now, you want to sell even more so. Well, how is a home in Chester coming to the market for, you know, X amount of millions of dollars? How is that going to help the, you know, the local people here who want to buy a home? Like, the average house price has gone up by $100,000. Like, I don't see people like flocking to, you know, Mahone Bay and Chester as first-time home buyers. So, you know.
Well, you've just touched on what I think is the main problem with this legislation, right? Is that it ultimately just penalizes those that are such a small portion of our housing stock that it's not going to solve any problem when it comes to supply and demand. Supply and demand is ultimately what drives prices up, and we have way too little supply and way too much demand. And you and I chatted about how we felt about the kind of fast tracking of 9 significant developments going on being a way bigger impact on solving this problem than this tax is. And I continue to believe that, right? And when you were talking, I've read estimates that we're talking about as little as maybe 3,200 residential properties, and 3,200 residential properties does not solve the problem that we have. It barely puts a dent in it, even if 100% of those people decide to put their house on the market, because we're running short by, you know, between 4,000 and 10,000 houses a year right now in terms of what we need to add to our stock. So, you know, it really is challenging there. Also, you know, I've read a couple of things about how, you know, really the problem that exists when it comes to housing availability and affordability doesn't exist in the outlying areas. And primarily those who own secondary properties are purchasing them in the outlying areas. There is shortage of stock everywhere in Nova Scotia. But if we're trying to solve the problem of attainability and affordability, for the most part, that problem is going to get solved in the major city centers, Halifax, Dartmouth, you know, into Sydney, into Truro. And if you're starting with the people who own property in Shelburne and you know, Sydney Mines, I think you're just starting in the wrong spot, and that seems to be the group that we're penalizing here. Yeah, I've read lots of suggestions about how this could have been otherwise, you know, handled. I know we're talking about municipal versus provincial taxation here at this point, but, you know, changing the way in which the municipal caps work on tax assessments would have probably had a similar effect, and not just penalize those who are perceived to be come from a ways. You know, and I say that that term kind of derisively because I am someone who moved here from Ontario 20 years ago. And it took me 10 months from the time that I bought my house to actually move my family here. And I would have incurred myself a 5% deed transfer tax. And it had it taken any longer, probably taken a 2% extra hit on my tax in that first year that I was here. So, you know, that at that point, that would have been pretty frustrating for me.
Mm-hmm. So Julia, we lost your video there. If you can come back on, that'd be great. And
hold on.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
Lost her totally.
Went the other way.
Yeah. So okay, she's coming back now. Yeah. So my question is, Pam, why do you think that the government, when you had people from the NSAR, you know, meet with them, that they didn't take any of our advice? Like, why were we're the ones on the street each and every day. We're hearing what buyers are saying. We're hearing what the sellers are saying. why haven't they gone to you? Like, why aren't they listening to us?
Well, that's the question. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, Tim Houston, went and we elected him in there and everything. And the next thing he does the rent freeze and everything. And we're all like, what has that got to do with, anything going forward and that kind of thing? So that was the first sort of real disconnect of what he thinks is going on and what is actually going on. And then we come to this finale here of what it is. It's just so final now. That budget hasn't been approved yet, and I don't know what we can do to do anything there to ask for any sort of relief or a reconsideration or anything like that. I don't know if anything like that is, but Matt's exactly right. The people that it's penalizing is minuscule compared to doing other things that could help to the market get a little bit more stabilized.
One thing I thought about this morning was that, and again, Pam, you and I talked about it, like we all help parents purchase properties here for their children to go to school. So I am a non-resident of Nova Scotia. Little Jimmy is going to Dow. I now have to pay 6.5% D-transfer tax. In the meantime, the residencies are full. We have a 1% vacancy rate downtown. So I'm paying 6.5% D-transfer tax. In addition to that, if my, little Jimmy doesn't have a roommate who's from Nova Scotia that I have a lease with, I'm now paying an additional 2% property tax. So why would I send my kid to Dow when I'm going to be charged with that much money?
Yeah,
it's true. There's so many of those little details too. Sorry to jump in there, but if you had a federally incorporated company that does development in Nova Scotia, and it's headquartered out of Ontario, but your president and all of your employees live in Nova Scotia, is that going to be, any properties that they own residentially, are they going to be taxed at this higher level? There's no detail around that, right? Some of those real interesting questions that I think make for good legislation were not answered in the release. There was, I think I would say there were 3 bullet points total, and those are real relevant things. I spent, and as I'm sure Pam spent the better part of the last 48 hours trying to decipher legislation that is not yet written, and help guide people to make decisions which involve hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars that we don't have any explanation around. And that's a tricky thing to do for sure. That, I would say I'm also resentful of the fact that I heard about this 2 days before it was actually impactful to some of our buying clients.
Yeah, I don't understand. So Julia is disconnecting now. So Julia, that's okay. My question for you is, how much notice were you given that you are now going to be faced with a $45,000 property tax increase?
I got the notice as of the, actually haven't even received a notice yet. It's only because of the budget that came down the other day. We haven't received anything.
And that's the other thing, if there has to be progress in that area, fine. Why penalize the people who supported us all this time? Why not say, okay, new people, this is your deal. This is your deal. If you're going to do this and you're going to come here, we need some extra dough, right? No, not going back to everybody who was here for years and years and years and came up here, and we waited for them every summer. And they created this lovely province. And now, why bother coming, or they can't afford to come, so they can afford their houses still for what they paid for them and everything. But anybody new and even paying these new prices, they can afford whatever.
Why don't they just do what other premiers have done? Like Ontario just slapped on a 20% tax for new buyers. Foreign buyers, not Canadians.
Right,
Like
why Canadian?
And what he's doing is very un-Canadian, it really. And one of our friends was chatting with a constitutional lawyer at McCarthy Tetro, and what they were saying is that it's set a dangerous precedent for. Can you hold on? I'm trying not. I don't want to hang up. Can you? Oh, you may not be able to see me because there's a call. I don't want to screw. No. Anyways, because other provinces might start doing this in retaliatory fashion.
Yeah, and blocking us out. I mean, which would be horrible. Yeah, Pam, you bring up a good point. Those people should have been grandfathered in.
Oh, of course.
But having said that, we don't know if they are not. Like there's so much ambiguity about all of this happening. And people are just left, assuming the worst when it may not be, but that's what we're left thinking. And it's not just about, Julia, you as the homeowner, you're going to be faced now with an additional 45,000. You got to sell your home, right? Who in the heck is going to want to buy a property in Nova Scotia as a summer home with 6.5%? Right? There's far and few between who are going to want to do that.
Correct. And also too, there will be a lot of bad publicity about this as well. Nova Scotia was on television all the time. Come to Nova Scotia. People came to Nova Scotia and now they're just slamming on this big tax. We know one couple that I don't know anybody that is happier to have bought a spot in northern Nova Scotia. They are happy as can be. And yet here they are, they're just absolutely shocked with what happened. They bought their house a year and a half ago, and nobody could be happier to be in Nova Scotia than this couple. Once again, it was a retirement home. They haven't sold their house yet in Hamilton, Ontario, and now they're stressed out about it.
Oh, it's not just affecting the homeowners, but if people are, want to sell or they want to move now, that's tourism. That's in Mahone Bay and Lunenburg and out in Chester. And could it have an impact on the downtown core with people, parents who are buying for their children to go to school here? Like it's just like a spider's web that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm so disappointed that, we're not being heard. And I think that
why the 5%? Why the 5%? Like Saskatchewan's a half, PEI is an extra half. I get that if you want to say, okay, you're not from here, you need to pay a little bit more. To turn around and say 5% on top of the 1.5, that's just so rude.
I agree. And so Matt, they're projecting that they're going to make in 22-23, the Nova Scotia government says they're going to have a projected surplus of 506 million for this year, 23-24, 418 million, and it continues. So do you really think that they're going to make that amount of money from the homeowner?
I mean, everything I've read is that this is not impactful on the bottom line of the provincial coffers, let's say. So I don't believe that's going to be the case. I really just don't see how this small portion of homeowners will be able to, or is going to really impact the overall provincial budget. It's a piece, and I really think the thing that it has done is created this position whereby the provincial Conservatives can stand up and say, we're protecting the affordability of Nova Scotian properties for people who are in Nova Scotia, Nova Scotians, right? I just think that is a bad message to be sending. This is a province that has only just recently become, a place where people aspire to come live. And you don't just come live here by selling your house where you're at and moving here instantly. A lot of people take the time to transition from where they're living to where we have to offer. And if they're going to be penalized in doing so, they're going to find beautiful homes in Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick and Newfoundland and other parts of Canada. And I just think that we had just taken a step in the right direction to solve the supply issue. Tax is obviously the simplest way in which you can sort of tamp down demand. But I just think that we've overshot the mark on this one. And I think we're sending a bad message to the country.
Pam, have you heard anything from your agents of, homeowners in those areas wanting to sell?
Oh yeah, everybody, yeah, just like this lady, just very concerned. Yeah.
So so Julia, you are in a position now that not only are you going to have to start paying your additional 2% property tax unless you can rent out your home prior to selling. But you could be at a potential loss. Your home could sit, for a while, unfortunately, because we can't, again, like some of the price points in your area, there's a small pool of who can buy a particular property like that in Nova Scotia.
Correct. We won't be the only ones. Like right now, we're the only ones on the peninsula with a house for sale, but there will be a lot of people putting their houses up for sale. Like, I mean, these are taxes that people just cannot afford, particularly the Americans. I mean, some of these American families have been there for generations. Like the Pugh family, they donated all the land for the Chester golf course and set up a trust to keep it so that it was affordable for everybody. And, a lot of these people, as everybody has been saying, have been huge contributors to the development of the area. Like the family that owned our place, their family from Baltimore, and their grandfather, every Sunday after church, he would see patients. He was the Surgeon General for the United States. And every Sunday he saw all the locals after church. And these people were big contributors. And this current government is not even considering any of these people. But anyways, to me, there's something very strange about all of this. Listening to him in the fall, he seemed to have a real sort of hatred for people that are owning properties there. And I mentioned it numerous times to my husband. And I know this sounds really childish. He sounded like really bitter, and I said, I wonder if he tried to buy a cottage at one time and couldn't. So, it sounds silly, but there just seems to be very strange, this whole issue of what he's doing.
So Matt, where do you feel that we go from here? Like, what are our next steps? Or are there any? Like, can we stop this?
Well, what's interesting is that the legislation is written so loosely right now that I'm sure that there are lots of people who are out there trying to figure out a way around it, which, is the challenge that comes with any legislation, obviously, especially when it comes to taxation. But that's one of the things that we don't have any answers on, right? So if I am interested, I'm an Ontario-based family, I'm interested in buying that condo for my son to go to Dal. Can I lease something to one of his friends for $1 a year? Does that work? And does that get me around the taxation rule? If I incorporate a company in Nova Scotia that is headquartered in Nova Scotia that my son is running while he's at Dal, and all it does is own a property, instead of paying 2% of the value of the condo, I just have to pay my $1,000 to register a company and then pay to keep it up, right? Like, we've created some hurdles here that I think they're going to have to be more specific with the legislation, because people will try and find a way around it, which is what everyone does with every tax law. Again, my bigger problem with this is that as it goes across the newspapers across the country, it just is one of those things that says, oh, Nova Scotia is not really open for business the way that we thought it was. And that just is a terrible message, since we spent so long trying to get ourselves on the map, that all of a sudden we're being kind of painted with a brush of they're not really interested in having people come from other parts of the country to enjoy all the things that we have. And we have spent an awful lot of time and energy trying to convince people to come and enjoy everything that Nova Scotia has to offer.
And it will be the foreigners and everybody who can afford all this new stuff. They'll be our new buyers. They'll be our new neighbors. It will do exactly the opposite of what he wanted it to do.
Yep. It's sad times for sure. And especially that, again, the ambiguity that's surrounding this, that we don't know. And it's such a shame that they didn't send that information out. If they have it, that it wasn't sent out, that we all can understand that, again, the three of us, we are on the road, with people like Julia and other, like, I will tell you, I have, but even when I were to look at, let's say, the database that I have this year of people who were wanting to look for, investment properties in Halifax, out of 30 buyers that I'm working with, there might have been 2. So there's not this like big, and I don't know about other agents in the office, Matt, like how many of us are working with people who want to buy properties here in Halifax? Like, I don't think there's many that, who aren't moving here.
Who aren't moving here. Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem, right? Is that the message ends up outweighing the actual impact, right? And the message is a negative one, and the actual impact will not be dramatically positive for affordability for everyone who's trying to buy a house right now, which I recognize is a problem, right? There is a problem with people entering the housing market right now, but this tax does not solve that problem. And then if there actually is a desire to balance a budget, I don't think you get there on the backs of less than 3,500 people who own property from away. That just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. And again, that might be an overreach there too, but that's the perception that I would have as a homeowner or property owner who is not a resident of the province right now.
And there was another proposal that Laura Lee, oh my goodness, I can't remember her last name, was stating, it has nothing to do with the transfer tax, for out of province buyers, but to waive the transfer tax for first-time home buyers. Well, how is what they're doing now, with the 6.5%, if their intention is to open up more homes, and now let's give our first-time home buyers potentially no transfer tax. Pam, do you see that being a benefit at all?
No. Yeah, they cross each other out and whatever, and they will never give a first-time home buyer that anyways.
Yeah. So is it a political soapbox?
It's a tease. But we heard rumblings about all this, weeks and weeks ago about them doing this and everything. And it was just like, you just never thought it would happen. And then all of a sudden it's right in your inbox. This is what happened last night, and it's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I read that article, and I mean, it's different levels of government, right? You're talking about the municipal transfer tax, and the municipalities really can't afford to give up that revenue. I don't believe they can. That's revenue that goes to servicing a lot of the things that happen. And we think of Halifax and everything going on here frequently, but when you start to get down into some of the smaller municipalities in the province, like that transfer tax goes towards a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I don't think they can afford to do that. But alternative to that as well is that we all know that that's not the solution. If anyone's out there listening, we know that's not the solution. The 1.5% that people are paying on deed transfer going up a little bit as prices increase is not the problem. It's the actual appreciation in prices of 35% over the course of the last 12 months that is making things unattainable for people. And that only happens because there's not enough houses for the amount of demand that we have here. So, the solution in my mind is when you have an attractive product, don't start saying to customers, hey, sorry, you can't buy this product because we don't want you to. Make more of the product. And that's what I think the announcement was at the beginning of last week. Take advantage of the demand that we have. Take advantage of the fact that we're in the nicest part of the nicest city in the nicest country in the world, and make it easier for developers to develop houses. Make it easier for people to invest here rather than harder. That's been my opinion all the way along.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and maybe penalize those people that are buying multiple properties. And those are local Nova Scotians are owning 5, 8, one person's 18. These are people that we know.
But they are being penalized because they have a rent cap. So I don't know. There's certainly a lot to talk about. And Julia, I'm very sorry that you and other homeowners are, having to go through this. It's, if anything, you should have been grandfathered in and, or, given more information at least just to.
Well, maybe that's something we fight for now. Like maybe that's, maybe that's all we have left is to help the people that are in it right now. And then going forward, take what you need, but don't take these people with you.
Because most people.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
We certainly won't be contributing to all the local charities, which we've all been contributing to, supporting the local services. When we bought our house, it sat vacant for years, like not vacant, but it had been on the market for years and nobody touched it. And it's taken us, we put our heart and soul into fixing this place up and bringing it up to modern standards. But anyways, I have nothing more to say.
I hate to say it, but you will be contributing to those things whether you like it or not now.
And in what way?
They're going to take 2% of the value of your home and put it back into local services, not charities, but local services. So
I thought he was supposed to go.
upon you.
Wasn't that his platform? He was going to revamp your healthcare and he was going to make the out of province homeowners pay for.
Yeah, it is one of those things that I think is fairly frustrating, because I don't think that it's the right solution. I think that there is a solution that exists there to continue to attract investment in Nova Scotia, and this is seems to be the wrong direction to go there. Ironically, I was on and reading about some of this stuff last night, and one of the things that took me to was the Premier's Twitter page, right? And the most recent post on the Twitter page at the time was reflecting on his goal to get to 2 million citizens in the province. I forget the date, right? But this doesn't seem like a move that makes it easier to get to the 2 million citizens from where we're at today.
No, absolutely not. Well, I want to thank everybody for their time today, and hopefully, the Premier and his cabinet will hear this video, and will make some type of impact, because it's just not fair for the people who are already here and they own, just to say, hey, by the way, this is what's happening now. It's just it's just not right. 2% is a lot, for sure.
Yep.
Criminal.
Thanks, Sandra.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank
Sandra.
you. Enjoy your day.
Julia. See you, Matt.
Appreciate it. See you guys. Take care.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll send that over now to CBC and get the press release written off the
I'm
video.
trying to get out of it.
Good. Thanks, Sandra.
Take care.
Yeah, see you guys later. Thanks, Pam. Good talking again.
You bet.
Bye.
All right. So